Hello folks, Roger Daniel Alcocer here for the magnificent world of toys. So first of all, I'd like to thank you all for your support and stuff. As you may all well know, we actually about, I'd say a month ago, reached 10,000 subscribers. And that was like, quite frankly, an amazing milestone. I didn't think we'd get there this year, but thank you all for your continuing support and your viewership. I really appreciate it. So now, considering that it is the holiday season, Christmas, for a lot of us, here are some of my top favorite Christmas gifts that I've gotten throughout my, I guess, childhood. So of course, growing up in the 80s was a very difficult time for anyone who was less fortunate. There was an abundance of really cool things out there. I mean, we're talking G.I. Joe, we're talking Thundercats, we're talking Transformers. I was a very big Masters of the Universe fan growing up. One thing though, my family was really poor and we couldn't afford those things. And so I'd see other kids like playing their Masters of the Universe stuff and all that, and I longed for that. And it really took a while to finally get some kind of Masters of the Universe toy. It's interesting because what it actually took was sort of for my parents to get divorced. Once my mother and father divorced, we lived those years with my mother. Unfortunately, my mother couldn't take care of us. She had a lot of mental issues and she eventually lost custody of us, and we went to live with my aunt and my father. My father was living with my aunt at the time. We actually spent Christmas with them, which was pretty interesting because my uncle told me to basically write a note to Santa and ask him what I wanted. And I had never done that before. So I basically wrote to Santa and said that I wanted a He-Man and a Battle Cat. And lo and behold, there it was, Christmas morning, a He-Man and a Battle Cat. And so this isn't the actual one. I mean, the actual one, I lost it. And so I went back, and one of the things when I started buying collectibles again, this was one of the first things that I wanted to get, because there was no greater feeling than finally opening up my very own He-Man and Battle Cat. And so, I mean, I look at it and there's just nothing beats this. Every time I look at this, even though it's not the one I had as a child, it takes me back to those days. And it's funny because I had it maybe for a few days before I started losing accessories and stuff like that. But seeing it complete, I mean, it just brings back so much memories. And it was just like a very happy time in my life, because you know, when you were in the situation I was in, you never see yourself getting something like this. And to finally have this and in my hands, and it was my own, it was just an incredible feeling. But He-Man and Battle Cat, quite frankly, one of the greatest gifts, if not the greatest Christmas gift I ever got in my life. So eventually we'd move out of my aunt's house and my father would get his own place, and a couple years in to that, you know, we'd meet our stepmother. And my father had known this woman for several years prior. Long story. Anyway, so she moves in with us, and my stepmother did so much for my younger siblings and myself. And one thing she always loved to do during Christmas is shower us with gifts. I mean, the funny thing was that it wasn't always what we wanted, but she'd always surprise us with just things that we had never seen, never heard of. Another thing is that she worked in downtown Los Angeles, so she was well aware of the toy district in Los Angeles. And it's interesting because this was like roughly late to mid 80s, and so this was at the height of the ninja craze, and so there was tons and tons of ninja toys. So I remember one Christmas she brought us back a bunch of like ninja toys, like a ninja on a skateboard and stuff like that. But one of the coolest gifts that I got was one of these ninjas on a ninja bike. And so I recently got this maybe like 3 or 4 years ago at a swap meet, but I remember I had a fleet of these. And the cool thing about this was that, you know, the bike was big enough to hold a G.I. Joe. So I did have a few G.I. Joes, and I remember I'd mount them on here and all that stuff. But this is so awesome because it's, you know, one of those like where you pull back and, you know, it kind of just takes off on its own. But there was nothing cooler than having a nice little fleet of these and just having them race themselves and stuff. And it'd be great to just have a box of these, you know, in their old display case and all that, and just for nostalgic purposes. But I mean, I look at this thing and it's just like, I mean, it's so awesome. And then not only that, like, I mean, he's got like his little soft goods and all that stuff, you know. It's just an incredible little figure and stuff. But This one certainly brings back a lot of memories, and especially around Christmas time and all the ninja goodies we used to get from my stepmother. Last but certainly not least. So I'm sure many of you, and it's hard to imagine childhood without some type of video game system. Now, my stepmother did eventually buy myself and my siblings a Nintendo. So fast forward to my teen years, and I've always been a child at heart. But another thing is that I was always into Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games and miniatures and things like that. And it's funny because I mentioned video games because as all my friends were getting the latest video game consoles like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis and TurboGrafx-16, we still had our Nintendo. But, I remember there was one Christmas where, my family, this particular Christmas, my family wasn't doing very well. My sister had actually just gotten her first job. She was working at a pizza parlor known as Fiesta Freddy's, which was pretty interesting in and of itself. But we were living in Compton around the time, and her job was in Paramount, California. Anyway, so my stepmother wasn't doing too well financially. We had a couple of bills we had to pay. And so my sister, bless her heart, with what little money she was making, she basically picked up the Christmas present buying duties. And so she didn't have a lot of money. And I remember one day she took us to the local Kmart. And so I remember, pointing out a couple toys. And then one thing I always wanted was the Hero Quest board game. And so, like I said, I love role-playing games. And the thing about Hero Quest is that it looks simple. It had a trove of miniatures, and I just loved the whole aspect of it. Just the fact that it had these little fold-out doors and, just stuff like that. It just looked like an incredible like set. And so, lo and behold, that Christmas, under the Christmas tree, there was Hero Quest. And so, I loved this game. And as I said, many of my friends, they were bragging about the latest video game consoles they had or whatever. But I knew that I wasn't going to get any of those. But this, to me, was just everything. And I just remember opening it and playing that very same night with my brothers and sisters. And another cool thing about, something like this for me was that it was kind of like the gift that kept on giving. Like, I've always enjoyed painting miniatures as well. And so I would paint my miniatures and stuff one by one, and I would just really enjoy it. I was somewhat of a reclusive around those years. And there was times where, I'd be spending my Saturday nights or my evenings just painting my miniatures and having a good time. This is not the original one I had. Unfortunately, the one that I had got lost when I went to college. And I believe my stepmother might have thrown it out or whatever. But I did acquire this one, which is almost 100% complete and in very good condition from a gentleman in OfferUp. But Hero Quest is just like an amazing game. But if you can get your hands on it and you just want to have a fun board game night with like your kids and your family, this might be it for you. And it's nice and simple. It's easy to learn, but the miniatures are incredible. It's just a beautiful looking game. And, just looking at this box art, this is some amazing freaking box art, right? This artwork brings back so many memories. This has to be one of my all-time favorite Christmas presents. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it in this video, which is the whole purpose of this video. But anyway, Hero Quest, just a fantastic board game, and just an amazing work of art. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the year, whatever's left of it. And it's not about, hey, next year we're gonna do this, next year we're gonna do that, and next year's gonna be better. You know what? Make tomorrow better. Make the next hour better. Make the next minute better. Because you know what? It's what you do now. Don't waste time. Live life to the fullest. Be happy. Make others happy. And you'll be young forever. May those who play never gray. This was Roger Daniel Alcocer for the Magnificent World of Toys. Take care.